let's be honest, end of the NBA season is really, one, the beginning in the summer, and two, it's the end of the sports year. That's why you get a little verklempt. You get a little broken up over the idea that the Nuggets win and this thing that's a wrap. This year is a wrap. 2022-2023 is a wrap. Memorial Day, the official launch to summer, but the end of the NBA Finals is the official launch to summer. Summer sports are here, and dudes just start. We've already had guys just start making up trades and making up takes. Now it's going to get really, really bad. And you know what the number one take tomorrow will be if the Nuggets win? You ready for it? The Nuggets a dynasty. Of all the things we do covering sports, and we do a lot of dumb stuff, the team that wins their first championship and it becomes some sort of dynasty conversation, I think takes the cake. I do. We did it with the Cubs when they finally won. We did it with the Bucks when they finally won. We do it in football. We're still, I guess now we call it the Chiefs dynasty. Chiefs have a dynasty. It's a dynasty. You can't be as successful as they have, as consistently successful without calling it a dynasty. Would it help you win back-to-back titles? Yes. Then you solidify the dynasty as being special. But the fact is that Patrick Mahomes, every year he's been a starting quarterback, he's gotten to the conference championship game. And now you got into several different Super Bowls and won two of them. We got a dynasty in the NFL. But the problem with it is we want to be like the first to call the dynasty. Nuggets win tonight, guarantee that's a portion of it. Whereas what really should be discussed is that you can win with a traditional or even non-traditional center as your best player. That's something that I got to be honest with you, didn't know if it would occur again. How many guys have we seen as those defensive kind of liabilities as big guys? And he's not a total liability. He's smart with it. He's got good hands. He makes smart plays, positional defender. But, we thought that small ball would always dominate, and they found a way to play through small ball. Now, granted, they didn't play the Warriors in the playoffs. They didn't play teams that exposed them nearly as much. I don't even think the Lakers would have been there if the Grizzlies would have been at full health. And maybe the Grizzlies could have played small ball and could have challenged Jokic with how much he covers in the floor. But the fact is, tonight, we're going to focus on the wrong stuff. If they win, is this a dynasty? Instead of, hey, wait a second now. Can we win with a center? Or is this just this year, this team, and this particular center? It is fascinating, though, how much the leagues are copycat leagues. So we've already had a run. There was a year, and there's almost every year, most of the starting centers in the NBA are foreign-born. But now the search for, you're going to take guys in the second round, a little bit more roly-poly. Guys are a little bit more skilled and athletic. And it's always fascinating to me on how we continue to miss. We judge people on how fast they are, how tall they are, how long their arms are, how high they jump. And yet, last year it was Steph, who we all, myself included, misjudged because of all the things we felt like he couldn't do. And Jokic, same exact thing. But no. That's not what conversation will be about. The conversation will be about, is this a dynasty? And, oh yeah, by the way, heat culture. What does heat culture mean? Look, they play hard. They're well coached. They're just not as good as the Nuggets. And they probably wouldn't be there if not for Giannis getting hurt. And I don't know why they didn't put Giannis on Jimmy Butler. Feels like that would have been kind of a game changer. And if you want to ask yourself why Mike Budenholzer was fired, there's your answer. Your best player, arguably the best player in basketball, wanted to guard a guy who was running a fever, and he was told, that's not our defensive assignments, that's not what we're doing, and he's somebody who actually follows the commands of his coach. Of course the Heat aren't the best team. They're not the second best team. And yes, they earned their way to being here by beating the Celtics. A lot of that was the Celtics just not playing. And a lot of that was, hey, the fact that when they beat the Bucks weren't at full strength for 2.5 of the games. Just reality. So yes, I do think the series ends tonight. I think basketball season's over tonight. I think summer begins tomorrow. And I think the dum-dum talk over, is it a dynasty, is going to commence somehow tomorrow at 6 a.m. on the East Coast, likely on one or more of the television networks. There you go. Got a lot to get to here. Oh, here's Mike Malone talking about his biggest concern. I like this cut. His biggest concern coming into tonight.
My biggest concern going into any closeout game is human nature and fighting against that. You're up 3-1, and there's just most teams when you're up 3-1, they come up for air, they relax, and they just kind of take it for granted that we're going to win this. And the neat thing for us is that going back to the bubble, we've been down 3-1 before. And we've come back and won, and we know anything is possible. And that's why, like, my message to our team before we came down to the media and the open portion of practices was, our approach has to be that we're down 3-1. They're desperate, we have to be more desperate. They're hungry, we have to be hungrier. And there is no celebrating after game 4. We have another game that we have to win. And the closeout game is always the hardest game ever. So I'm looking forward to seeing our approach. We had it in game 6 against Phoenix. We had it in game 5 against Minnesota. We had it in game 4 against the Lakers. And my hope is that tomorrow night, in front of just an unbelievable crowd, incredible environment, that our players understand the opportunity in front of them and take full advantage of it.
It's a great point. Here's the other part, though. If you're worried about human nature, why aren't we worried about the Heat metaphorically waving the white flag, right? Or theoretically, just mentally, emotionally, at some point you're down in the second half and them going, we're just not as good as these guys. We're playing with house money. Yes, John Ramos.
Do you think that, I think, to me personally, I think the Nuggets are an indifferent team. I think you don't hate them, you don't like them. They're kind of like that middle ground team. There's nobody, But do you think Mike Malone has been odd? I think he's been kind of a hated figure. Don't you think he's kind of been?
No.
You don't think so? You think he's just being the coach and sticking up for his team?
Yeah, what did he do that would be the hated figure?
Well, he was crying a little bit during the Lakers series and
about the attention thing.
Yeah, and stuff like that. Do you think that just kind of comes and goes and washes away?
I think he's right, but I think we're all realistic about it. Like, the NBA Finals are on. We're talking about Jokic. We're talking about their team nonstop. Whatever. We're going to overdo it and talk about how great they are and how they should win and be a dynasty and whatever. Like, that's what actually happens. I think he knows it. I think it's a little bit of a motivational game, and that's really what he's playing. Is it a little annoying? Sure. Do people hate him? No. Again, I think they don't hate him because it's like you said, we're kind of indifferent towards the Nuggets. We're all suddenly in an era in which where everybody and everything is divisive. I think we're all united in they're really good. And I probably should have watched them more. And they're maybe interesting because they're distant. They're not interesting. And that would be better. Here's Eric Spoelstra talking about tonight's elimination game.
Love playing in these kind of environments, where the crowd's going to be great, tomorrow. Everybody's counting us out. We're used to that. But ultimately, it has to be decided between those 4 lines. The crowd's not going to decide it. The narratives aren't going to decide it. Whatever the analytics are about 3-1, that ain't going to decide it. It's going to be decided between those 4 lines, whose game can get to whose game and ultimately win at the end. That's what our guys love.
I agree with that, by the way. That's a really smart point. I hate the, things that don't matter somehow mattering. But a lot of that is media driven. Who wants it more? Come on, man. Home court advantage, who the officials are. It just, whoever has more points at the end of the game, I've been told, is the victor. That's my distinct experience of 47 years on this earth.